We have Mr. P.V. Ramesh, the Chairman and Managing Director of REC, also joining us, sir. Please, Mr. Stay on, Mr. Bhalla, we have more questions. Mr. Ramesh, you are the nodal agency. What's for you in it? You make more money? You get more work?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. The Power Secretary has said whatever needed to be said. And we are grateful to the government for trusting REC with being the nodal agency. We will continue to do whatever the government directs us to do. We work in close coordination with the state governments and the distribution companies. And we will continue to strengthen our relationship, which we already have, by virtue of our financing business, as well as being the nodal agency for Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana and the Deen Dayal Gram Jyoti Yojana, which is an ongoing program, which as the government directs us, we will be delighted to be part of this. I think it is a great opportunity for us.
Mr. Ramesh, can you throw some more light on the specifics? I mean, the timelines, when can we expect the tendering process to start? Because obviously there will be a lot of the the equipment suppliers, companies who produce meters, or sort of people who make transmission lines. They'll be very excited to know some of these details.
I have very little to add to what the Power Secretary has already said. We are ready to go today. If the government asks us to start today, and that's what the Honorable Prime Minister has said, and then we are ready to go. And this process will start in right earnest. The state governments are well geared. They are already well advanced with the implementation of the village electrification, the household, the system strengthening contracts. So this should be a logical extension of the process.
Okay, sir, net, will the discoms buy more power?
Let me say this. I mean, you already see signs of a major step up in terms of the demand by the discoms by virtue of the Upadhyay, which has really eased created a much broader fiscal space for the discoms in order for them to make further investments. So from the financing company, I can say very clearly that the demand for capital investment in distribution network, in addition to what is being done under Deen Dayal Upadhyay, has gone up. So which is a very positive trend. And the second is, I mean, just imagine 4.2 crore households, which translates roughly into 25 crore citizens, and 25 citizens per capita demand on an average of about 1100 kilowatt hour is really translates into something like 25 gigawatt additional demand. So all this would contribute to an additional demand at the aggregate level, at the discom level, So this would mean higher demand for power.
So let me actually bring in the Power Secretary back on that note. Sir, that's an important point, In between, we had this sort of temporary spike in merchant power tariffs. I'm seeing the tariffs, they're back at about 3.5 rupees per unit now. What is your sort of assessment of power demand? What are the targets for this year? And more importantly, next year, how much growth can we expect in power demand, if at all?
See, already we are targeting a big capacity to be added in this year itself, which is already under this thing. In the first quarter, we have added a capacity which is beyond the targeted for first quarter. Secondly, let me tell you, discoms are in the business of supplying electricity, so why won't they buy electricity if there is more demand? And as Ramesh rightly said, if a per capita consumption increases even by a small numbers, it adds to demand. And discoms definitely, I mean, they have some pending PPAs, they have some more this thing coming. Why would not they buy power in a competitive scenario if they need more power? And you would also appreciate that recently the Shakti auctions have taken place, and about 10 to 12 units, about 27 million tons per annum coal will be allocated to them, which means another 6,000 to 7,000 megawatts will be added to the system. Recent spike was for different reasons, which has been taken care of. There was a sudden decline in wind and hydro, and as the rains were not there, there was demand on agriculture side, which has been taken care of. A lot of coal has been pushed to the power plants. Still, many of them are in the critical position, but I mean, another 7-8 days coal loading More than 200 rakes every day are going for the power sector. So it should take care of the stocks at power stations.
Okay. Well, Mr. Ramesh, before the announcement, have you and Mr. Bhalla and the state government sat down and chalked up how you all will go about this electrification?
I think the Power Secretary is better positioned to answer this, and I'm sure the government has done its homework very well.
What is the homework done, sir?
The very
Mr.
fact
Bhalla?
we are confident of starting.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, sir. Mr. Bhalla, what has been done so far?
What has been done means the scheme components have been chalked out. What are the per household this thing we are providing? What kind of meters will be given? We are going to hold now, once the scheme has been approved, then only we can start initiating further work. So in the first week of October, we are holding a workshop with all the state power secretaries and discoms. And the program gets kicked off. I mean, we'll definitely, there is no apprehension in our mind. There is nothing new, new work to the discoms or the people working with them. It's a thing which partly they are already doing.
Sir, finally, I mean, just sort of going through some reports that are indicating that maybe the ministry is going to recommend certain legislative changes to the Electricity Act itself for a number of different reasons. I mean, one of the long-standing objectives has been to separate carriage and content, so that me as a consumer, I have the power to choose any supplier. I don't know if that plan is back on the table. If it is, in the winter session, are you going to be moving any changes to the Act?
See, the Act was, the amendment bill was introduced in the Lok Sabha, and it was examined by the standing committee, has come back with the recommendations which we are further examining. I won't be able to give it a timeline that whether we'll introduce or not, but definitely it's on the table and we are working on it.
Okay.
And if it is possible, we'll try to introduce it.
Sir, I'm getting Twitter questions from our viewers. One of them is asking whether this 12,000 crore that is set aside from the central government for the Saubhagya scheme is fresh budgetary allocation, or will it be, reallocation from some other schemes, Mr. Bhalla?
It will be fresh budgetary allocation as far as rural households are concerned, and for urban households which are not very large in numbers, there will be savings from the existing IPDS scheme from where it will be contributed. That is the plan, and in this financial year the allocation is about 4,000 crores, and then remaining allocation comes in the next financial year.
Okay, if it is fresh allocation, that will mean a slight addition to the deficit, is it? Or resources will be there?
No, it has been discussed with the finance ministry. The reappropriation stage, it will be examined and money will be given.
All right. Well, we have some idea of how the scheme might roll out. Mr. Ramesh and Mr. Bhalla, thank you very much for joining in and elaborating on what we should expect on the electrification of all households in India by 2019.